The glass door slammed against the wall just as Amara Okoye rushed into the interview room, drenched from the rain and breathing hard. Every executive seated at the long conference table turned toward her. One of them checked his watch. "You are 7 minutes late." Amara tightened her grip on the folder in her hand. "I know, sir. A bus broke down, and I ran the last 6 streets." A woman at the far end frowned. "You expect us to accept that excuse for an executive assistant position?" "No," Amara replied. "I expect you to judge whether I can still perform under pressure." The room became silent. Across the table, 12 applicants sat in perfectly pressed suits. Amara's shoes were wet. Her blouse clung to her shoulders. She had already been rejected by 11 companies in 3 weeks because she had no Korean corporate experience. This was her last opportunity. The interview director pushed a printed schedule toward her. "CEO Lee Jun-Seo has 27 meetings tomorrow. Organize them." Amara scanned the pages. Most applicants had spent 20 minutes rearranging the times. Amara took less than 2. "This schedule cannot be organized." Several executives exchanged irritated looks. The director leaned back. "Explain." 2 meetings involve the same Japanese investor in different buildings 20 minutes apart. The legal review is scheduled after the contract signing. The finance director is expected at 3 meetings simultaneously. And the CEO's mother's charity board dinner is missing, although it appears in last month's correspondence. The director's face changed. "How did you notice all of that?" Amara closed the file. "Because I wasn't trying to impress you. I was trying to prevent tomorrow from becoming a disaster." Behind the mirrored glass overlooking the room, Lee Jun-Seo slowly lifted his head. For 10 years, no candidate had criticized his schedule during an interview. His chief secretary, Kim Hyun-woo, stood beside him. "She's bold." "She's either bold," Jun-Seo said coldly, "or careless." Hyun-woo smiled. "You watched her twice as long as the others." Jun-Seo ignored him. Officially, Lee Jun-Seo was the 34-year-old billionaire CEO of Daehan Holdings, a global corporation controlling construction, shipping, technology, and luxury hotels. Unofficially, powerful men whispered his name with fear. His late father had built a criminal organization beneath the corporation, and Jun-Seo had inherited both worlds. Politicians wanted his support. Rivals wanted him dead. Employees feared even making eye contact with him. He had not smiled publicly in 9 years. 30 minutes later, the interview director entered his office. "We recommend 3 candidates." Jun-Seo continued reading. "Hire the late one." The director hesitated. "Amara Okoye?" "Yes. She has no experience working for a Korean executive." She noticed what everyone with experience missed. The following Monday, Amara stood outside Jun-Seo's office at 6:45 in the morning. Hyun-woo handed her a tablet. "The CEO arrives at 7. "I was told 7:30. "He arrives whenever he wants." "That sounds efficient." Hyun-woo almost laughed. "Never say that where he can hear you." The elevator doors opened. Every employee instantly stood. Jun-Seo walked out in a black suit, surrounded by 4 security guards. His expression was unreadable. He passed the reception desk without greeting anyone. Amara stepped forward. "Good morning, Mr. Lee." He stopped. The entire floor froze. Most employees waited months before speaking to him directly. Jun-Seo looked at her. "You're blocking my path." She moved aside. "Your first meeting has been delayed by 20 minutes. "Who authorized that?" "I did." Hyun-woo's eyes widened. Jun-Seo's voice lowered. "You changed my schedule on your first morning?" The Singapore investor's flight was delayed. "I moved the legal briefing ahead and prevented 40 minutes of empty waiting." "You assume I dislike waiting." "I assume your time is expensive." For several seconds, Jun-Seo stared at her. Then he entered his office. Coffee. Black. Amara followed him. You have not eaten. That was not a question. No, but your medical report says you experience migraines when you skip breakfast. Jun-Seo slowly turned. Who gave you access to my medical report? It was attached to your emergency travel file. You read everything? Anything that helps me do my job. His expression remained cold, but something moved in his eyes. Coffee, he repeated. And breakfast. He sat behind his desk. You have already become irritating. I was hired to make your life easier, not to make myself likable. Outside the glass office, employees stared in disbelief. By noon, Amara had corrected 3 contract errors, rescheduled 5 meetings, discovered a duplicate payment worth $200,000, and stopped an angry investor from leaving the building. At 3, a delegation from West Africa arrived unexpectedly. Their leader, Chairman Samuel Badu, refused to enter the conference room. The seating arrangement is insulting, he said. Executives panicked. The partnership was worth nearly $1 billion. Vice President Daniel Choi blamed Amara immediately. You prepared the room. I followed the protocol your department sent. Then fix it. Amara entered the conference hall, studied the arrangement, and immediately understood the problem. The chairman had been placed at the side of the table while junior Korean executives occupied the center. She reorganized the seats, removed the cold formal nameplates, and asked that tea be served before negotiations began. When Chairman Badu returned, he nodded. Someone here understands respect. Jun-Seo looked toward Amara. She did not smile proudly. She simply opened her notebook. The meeting succeeded. Hours later, as the delegation left, Chairman Badu shook Jun-Seo's hand. Your new assistant may be the most intelligent person in this building. Jun-Seo glanced at her. Amara was helping a junior employee gather dropped documents. For one brief second, the corner of his mouth lifted. Hyunwoo saw it. So did Daniel Choi. And while Hyunwoo looked surprised, Daniel's expression hardened with fear. Because everyone inside Daehan Holdings understood one thing. If Amara Okoye could make Lee Jun-Seo smile, she could become more powerful than anyone expected. And powerful people always attracted dangerous enemies. If Amara's courage has already impressed you, subscribe, like this video, and tell us in the comments. Would you dare challenge a billionaire CEO on your very first day? Daniel Choi closed his office door and stared through the glass wall at Amara. She was standing beside Jun-Seo's desk, calmly explaining why 2 meetings had to be cancelled. Jun-Seo was listening. That alone disturbed Daniel. Executives who had worked beside the CEO for 10 years rarely finished a sentence before Jun-Seo dismissed them. Yet Amara had been there for 3 weeks, and the man now waited for her opinion before signing major documents. Daniel picked up his phone. Begin changing the schedules, he said quietly. A nervous voice answered. What if she notices? Daniel's eyes narrowed. She is an assistant, not an investigator. But Amara noticed the first change within an hour. A board meeting had been moved from 2 o'clock to 1:30 without her approval. She corrected it. Then an investor's private dinner vanished from the calendar. She restored it. The next morning, the wrong financial report appeared in Jun-Seo's briefing folder. Amara replaced it seconds before he entered the boardroom. Jun-Seo sat at the head of the table while 12 executives waited for him to speak. He opened the folder. His eyes moved across the first page. Then he looked at Amara. This is the corrected report. Yes. What happened to the original? It contained figures from the previous quarter. Daniel leaned forward. Perhaps your assistant made a mistake. Amara turned calmly toward him. The incorrect document was uploaded from the vice president's department at 11:43 last night. The room became still. Daniel smiled without warmth. Are you accusing my staff? No. Amara closed her tablet. I am stating what the system recorded. Jun-Seo watched both of them. Daniel adjusted his tie. Administrative errors happen. So do patterns, Amara replied. The executives lowered their eyes. Nobody spoke to Daniel Choi that way. Jun-Seo's expression remained unreadable, but beneath the table his fingers stopped tapping. Continue, he ordered. The meeting proceeded, but Daniel barely heard a word. Amara had challenged him in front of the board and survived. Worse, Jun-Seo had allowed it. That evening, Amara remained in the office long after everyone else left. She compared email records, access logs, and altered schedules. At 11:30, Jun-Seo opened his office door. Why are you still here? She looked up. Because someone is interfering with your calendar. You believe it is Daniel. I believe accusations without proof are careless. He stepped closer. You're exhausted. So are you. I am accustomed to it. That doesn't make it healthy. He studied the cold coffee beside her. You haven't eaten. Amara raised an eyebrow. Now you understand how irritating that question is. For one unexpected second, Jun-Seo almost smiled. Then the elevator doors opened. 4 armed guards entered. Hyun-woo rushed toward them. Sir, we have a problem. Jun-Seo's entire demeanor changed. What happened? One of the Busan warehouses was attacked. 2 guards were injured. The men left a message. What message? Hyun-woo hesitated before handing him a photograph. A black symbol had been painted across the warehouse wall. Amara recognized the danger in everyone's faces. Jun-Seo took the photograph and turned toward her. Go home. I still have work. That was not a request. Amara stood. I don't respond well to commands. This is not about your pride. And my life is not yours to control. His voice hardened. Men were attacked tonight because someone wants to weaken me. What does that have to do with me? Jun-Seo stared at her for a long moment. More than you understand. Before she could question him, he looked at Hyun-woo. Double security around her apartment. Amara's eyes widened. No. Jun-Seo ignored her. 2 men outside the building. 1 car following her to work. I said no. He turned back to her. And I said you do not understand the danger. What danger? The answer came from Hyun-woo. Your photograph was found in the warehouse. Silence swallowed the room. Amara's anger disappeared. My photograph? Hyun-woo showed her another image. It was a picture of Amara entering Daehan Holdings, taken from across the street. Across her face, someone had drawn a red line. Jun-Seo's jaw tightened. You are now connected to me. I am your employee. To my enemies, that is enough. Amara's throat went dry. For the first time since joining the company, she saw the truth behind the rumors. Jun-Seo was not merely a cold billionaire. He lived inside a world where business disputes ended in blood. She picked up her bag. I'm going home. You're coming with me. No. My estate is protected. I will not move into your house because someone sent a threat. Jun-Seo stepped closer. If they reach you, they will not ask for permission before changing your life. And if I go with you, will I still have one? His expression shifted. The question struck deeper than she expected. I will not imprison you. You already decide when I leave, where I go, and who follows me. I am trying to keep you alive. And I am trying not to disappear inside your world. Jun-Seo said nothing. Amara walked toward the elevator. This time, he did not stop her. But when she reached her apartment 40 minutes later, the front door was open. She froze. The lights inside were off. A broken lamp lay near the entrance. Her drawers had been emptied. Her clothes were scattered across the floor. Nothing valuable had been taken. Then she saw the message written across her bedroom wall. Leave him, or die with him. Her knees weakened. A shadow moved behind her. Amara spun around and raised her bag like a weapon. Jun-Seo stood in the doorway. 2 guards surrounded him. He looked past her at the message. Something terrifying entered his eyes. I told you, he said quietly. Amara struggled to breathe. Were you following me? Yes. You had no right. No, he answered. But tonight, I don't care. He removed his coat and placed it around her shaking shoulders. She wanted to push him away. Instead, her fingers gripped the fabric. Jun-Seo looked at the ruined apartment, then at Hyun-woo. Find whoever entered this room. Hyun-woo nodded. And when we find them? Jun-Seo's voice became cold enough to silence everyone. They will regret learning her name. Amara looked up at him. This is exactly what I feared. What? Becoming important to a man whose enemies solve problems with violence. Jun-Seo's eyes held hers. You became important before either of us understood the cost. Her heart stumbled. Neither of them moved. Then a gunshot shattered the window. Jun-Seo threw Amara to the floor as glass exploded over them. The guards drew their weapons. More shots struck the walls. Jun-Seo covered Amara with his body while shouting orders. Get her downstairs. No. Amara grabbed his arm. You're bleeding. A bullet had torn through his shoulder. He looked at the blood, then back at her. It's nothing. You were shot. And you're alive. Even as gunfire echoed outside, Amara pressed both hands against his wound. Her fear turned into focus. I need something clean. One guard tore a piece from his shirt. Amara held it against the injury. Jun-Seo winced. Does that hurt? He looked at her trembling hands. Not as much as watching you walk into danger alone. The guards moved them toward the emergency exit. As they descended the stairs, Jun-Seo leaned close. From tonight, you stay at my estate. Amara looked into his eyes. This time, she did not argue. Because the war had already found her. And somewhere inside the darkness below, the men who had attacked them were waiting to see whether the coldest man in Seoul had finally discovered a weakness. He had. Her name was Amara Okoye. The iron gates of the Lee estate closed behind the convoy just as dawn painted the Seoul skyline. Amara stepped out of the vehicle, still wearing Jun-Seo's jacket. She looked at the towering mansion, then at the dozens of security officers stationed around the property. This isn't a home, she whispered. It's a fortress. Jun-Seo glanced toward the guards. It has to be. She turned to him. How long have you lived like this? He answered without emotion. So long that I stopped noticing. A doctor hurried toward them. Sir, your shoulder. It's a scratch. The doctor frowned. A bullet wound is never a scratch. Before Jun-Seo could refuse treatment, Amara stepped in front of him. Sit down. He looked at her. I have meetings. You have a bullet in your shoulder. My company will survive 1 hour without you. Hyun-woo lowered his head to hide a smile. Nobody spoke to Lee Jun-Seo like that. To everyone's surprise, the billionaire quietly sat down. Amara carefully cleaned the wound. You should have gone to the hospital. I don't like hospitals. She raised an eyebrow. And I don't like stubborn patients. For the first time, several guards heard something they never expected. A faint laugh escaped Jun-Seo. It lasted barely a second. But it was enough. Every person in the room looked at one another. Their feared CEO had laughed. Hyun-woo quietly excused himself and walked outside. He immediately called Chairman Lee's residence. The chairman should know. What happened? The CEO smiled. Silence followed. Then an elderly voice answered softly. I've waited 9 years to hear those words. By afternoon, Amara had settled into a guest suite. She refused the luxury clothes waiting in the wardrobe. Instead, she unpacked the few belongings she had rescued from her apartment. A framed photograph, a notebook, 3 books, a faded family picture. Nothing else. Chairwoman Lee Hae-jin entered without knocking. Elegant, perfectly dressed. Every movement reflected authority. She looked around the room. So, you are the woman. Amara stood respectfully. I'm Amara Okoye. I know exactly who you are. The older woman slowly walked around the room. My son has never brought anyone here. I'm only here because someone tried to kill me. My son has enemies. So I've noticed. Chairwoman Lee folded her arms. Do not mistake his protection for affection. Amara answered calmly. I've mistaken neither. The older woman's eyes narrowed. You aren't intimidated. I've learned that confidence and arrogance aren't the same thing. Chairwoman Lee studied her for several seconds before leaving without another word. Outside the room, she paused. For reasons she couldn't explain, she had expected to dislike Amara. Instead, she found herself intrigued. Meanwhile, Daniel Choi sat inside a private restaurant across town. A man wearing black gloves slid into the opposite seat. The attack failed. Daniel's jaw tightened. You promised she wouldn't survive. We promised we'd try. Daniel leaned closer. You don't understand. As long as she remains beside Jun-Seo, my future disappears. The stranger smiled coldly. Then perhaps we stop targeting the woman. Daniel frowned. What do you mean? We target the grandfather. Daniel's face lost all color. No. If Chairman Lee dies, the company falls into chaos. And Jun-Seo becomes vulnerable. Daniel slowly stood. I wanted my position. I never wanted murder. The stranger chuckled. You entered this game the day you hired us. Daniel walked away without replying. For the first time, he realized how far things had gone. 3 days later, Daehan Holdings prepared for the biggest merger in company history. Executives from 6 countries filled the headquarters. Reporters crowded outside. Inside the executive conference room, tension filled the air. Chairman Lee insisted on attending despite Jun-Seo's objections. I built this company. I'll witness its future. The meeting began. Financial projections appeared on the giant screen. Everything seemed perfect. Then Amara frowned. She leaned closer to her laptop. Something wasn't right. She quickly compared 2 spreadsheets. Her heartbeat quickened. She checked another file. Then another. Without warning, she stood. Stop the presentation. The room froze. Daniel looked furious. What are you doing? Amara ignored him. She walked toward Jun-Seo. The acquisition numbers are wrong. Our accountants verified them. They verified the edited version. Daniel's voice sharpened. Sit down. Amara didn't move. She projected another document onto the screen. Gasps spread around the room. Someone had altered the exchange rate calculations. The mistake would have cost Daehan Holdings nearly $400 million. Chairman Lee slowly removed his glasses. Who prepared this report? Daniel answered immediately. The finance department. Amara looked directly at him. No. The metadata shows the file was modified at 1:12 this morning. She paused. Using the vice president's executive access code. Every eye turned toward Daniel. His breathing became uneven. Jun-Seo spoke quietly. Explain. Daniel forced a laugh. Someone must have stolen my credentials. Hyunwoo entered carrying a tablet. I'm afraid that's impossible. He pressed play. Security footage appeared. Daniel entered the executive records room shortly after 1 o'clock. Alone. He left 12 minutes later. The silence became unbearable. Chairman Lee looked devastated. You. Daniel lowered his head. I only wanted her removed. Jun-Seo stood. His chair slid backward across the polished floor. You risked destroying this company. Daniel shouted back. No. I risked exposing the truth. The truth. Daniel pointed toward Amara. Ever since she arrived. You've changed. You listen. You laugh. You leave the office before midnight. You actually ask employees how they're doing. His voice cracked. I spent 15 years trying to earn your respect. She did it in 3 months. The room fell silent again. Jun-Seo looked at Daniel with disappointment rather than anger. You believed respect was earned through ambition. He glanced toward Amara. She earned it through integrity. Security officers entered. Daniel didn't resist. As they escorted him away, he stopped beside Amara. I'm sorry. She looked at him sadly. It wasn't my success that threatened you. It was your fear. Daniel lowered his head. For the first time in years, he felt ashamed. As the board meeting resumed, Chairman Lee quietly watched Jun-Seo. His grandson wasn't simply becoming a better leader. He was becoming a better man. And everyone in the room knew exactly who had changed him. Amara Okoye. If you're loving how this story is unfolding, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment telling us. Do you think Daniel deserves forgiveness after everything he's done, or should he face the full consequences of his actions? 3 weeks passed. For the first time in years, Daehan Holdings felt different. Employees no longer rushed through the hallways in silence. Junior staff no longer trembled when the CEO walked by. Department heads actually discussed ideas instead of merely agreeing with every decision. The change had not happened because new policies were announced. It happened because the man at the top had changed. One morning, Jun-Seo surprised everyone by entering the company cafeteria instead of eating alone in his office. The room became completely silent. He picked up a tray. A young intern accidentally bumped into him, spilling coffee across the CEO's sleeve. The poor young man turned pale. I'm so sorry, sir. Everyone expected shouting. Some even looked away. Instead, Jun-Seo calmly accepted the napkins Amara handed him. It's only coffee, he said. Next time, carry 1 cup at a time. The intern almost burst into tears. Thank you, sir. Across the room, Hyun-woo smiled. Months earlier, that same mistake would have ended someone's career. Now, the impossible had become ordinary. Later that afternoon, Chairman Lee stood beside Amara in the company garden. My grandson has carried too much weight since his father died. Amara looked toward the headquarters building. He still carries it. Yes. But now he isn't carrying it alone. She remained silent. The chairman noticed the uncertainty in her eyes. What troubles you? Amara took a slow breath. I promised myself something years ago. What promise? My mother spent her entire life loving a man whose work always came first. She lowered her eyes. When he finally had time for her. It was because he was dying. Chairman Lee's expression softened. I promised I would never disappear inside another person's ambition. He nodded with understanding. Have you disappeared? I don't know. That question stayed with her for days. Then, one Friday evening, her phone rang. The screen displayed a familiar name. Grace Adeyemi. Amara smiled. I've been waiting for your call. Grace didn't waste time. I bought your ticket. What ticket? The flight back to Nigeria. Amara froze. You told me that if your work ever became more important than your happiness, I'd have permission to drag you home. I remember. So, are you still keeping your promise to yourself? Amara looked through the glass wall into Jun-Seo's office. He was still working. Stacks of reports covered his desk. Executives waited outside for signatures. Grace spoke gently. "You're in love with him, aren't you?" A long silence followed. "Yes." "And does he know?" "No." "Then how long will you keep pretending?" After the call ended, Amara opened her laptop. She typed a single document. Resignation letter. Each word became harder to write than the one before. She thanked Daehan Holdings for the opportunity. She thanked Jun-Seo for believing in her. Then she quietly placed the envelope on his desk before leaving the building. The following evening, Daehan Holdings hosted its annual charity gala. Business leaders from across Asia, Africa, Europe, and America filled the magnificent ballroom. Television cameras broadcast the event live. Jun-Seo entered moments before his keynote address. Hyun-woo handed him the evening's speech. Instead, Jun-Seo noticed the envelope lying on his desk. He frowned. He opened it. As he read the first paragraph, every sound around him seemed to disappear. Hyun-woo watched his expression change. What happened? Jun-Seo looked up. Where is she? She arrived at the ballroom a few minutes ago. Without another word, Jun-Seo walked away from the stage. Hundreds of guests watched in confusion. Chairwoman Lee noticed immediately. Something was wrong. Across the ballroom, Amara stood quietly near the exit. She had already decided. She loved him. But she loved herself enough not to lose who she was. Just as she reached for the door, she heard footsteps behind her. Amara. She slowly turned. Jun-Seo stood before her. The ballroom became completely silent. Every camera focused on them. He held the resignation letter in one hand. You planned to leave. She nodded. Yes. Without saying goodbye. I knew if I tried. She smiled sadly. I wouldn't be strong enough. Jun-Seo looked down at the letter. For years I believed the greatest achievement was building the largest company. He looked back into her eyes. Then you walked into my office. His voice grew softer. You corrected my schedules. You challenged my decisions. You argued with me. A few guests laughed quietly. You reminded me to eat. You treated my wound. You saved my grandfather. You made this company stronger. He took another step. But none of those things changed me as much as one simple truth. Amara's eyes filled with tears. You taught me that success without someone to share it with is just another empty office. He slowly tore the resignation letter into pieces. The sound echoed through the silent ballroom. I don't want you to stay because you work for me. I want you to stay because I love you. For the first time since they met, Amara couldn't find any words. Jun-Seo reached into his pocket. Instead of immediately revealing a ring, he removed a small photograph. It was the security camera image from her first day at the supermarket years earlier during her volunteer charity drive, where she had been helping strangers with groceries before her interview. I asked Hyun-woo why this picture was kept. He said you reminded everyone that kindness is never wasted. He smiled warmly. I think that's the day I began changing. Then he opened the small velvet box. Inside rested a beautiful diamond ring. Amara Okoye. Will you marry me? The ballroom held its breath. Amara looked toward Chairwoman Lee. The elegant woman slowly walked forward. Months earlier, she had doubted this young African woman. Now she gently took Amara's hands. My son inherited wealth. You helped him discover compassion. She smiled. I could not ask for a better daughter. Chairman Lee wiped away tears. Hyun-woo quietly applauded. Soon the entire ballroom erupted with applause. Amara looked back at Jun-Seo. You once told me I was blocking your path. He laughed softly. I was wrong. You became my path. A tear rolled down her cheek. Then she smiled. Yes. I'll marry you. The applause became thunderous. Months later, their wedding united families, friends, and business partners from Korea and across Africa. Instead of expensive gifts, the couple requested donations to scholarships for talented international students pursuing careers in business and leadership. The program funded thousands of young people within its first year. Daehan Holdings also launched leadership training, mentorship programs, flexible work schedules, and employee wellness initiatives. Productivity increased. Profits reached record highs. But the employees often said the greatest achievement wasn't measured in financial reports. It was measured in the smiles that had returned to the building. Daniel Choi accepted responsibility for his crimes. After serving his sentence and demonstrating genuine reform, he was later invited back, not as an executive, but as an ethics consultant who trained future leaders on the cost of ambition without integrity. One afternoon, long after the wedding, Jun-Seo and Amara walked through the headquarters together. Employees greeted them with genuine smiles instead of fearful bows. A new assistant hurried toward Amara. "Mrs. Lee, how do you always know exactly what the CEO needs?" Amara looked at Jun-Seo. He smiled back at her. "I stopped trying to organize his calendar. I learned to understand his heart." Jun-Seo quietly squeezed her hand. The cold billionaire who had once been known throughout Korea as the man who never smiled now smiled almost every day. Not because business had become easier, but because he had finally found someone who reminded him that the strongest empires are not built with fear. They are built with trust, respect, kindness, and love. If this story warmed your heart, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who believes love can change even the hardest heart. And tell us in the comments, what was your favorite moment in Amara and Jun-Seo's journey? We would love to hear your thoughts. Until the next story, thank you for watching.